The Missing Husband by David Kerekes. 124 was spiteful. After all these years it has remained so. But I'm straight in my head about it. The way things change with Popper, I'm straight in that too. Think of life as a long road, with different aspects to it. The road starts in one place and goes to another, but it's the same road. Here the road begins at a house in a meadow where the sun shines down, surrounded by a forest and mountains. First the house, then the meadow, and then along comes the horse. That's how my memories of Vestlandet always begin. The horse arrived at the open door one morning, a grey mare with its saddle empty, in search of the jam Martha was making. My sister, older than me, got a shock when the horse tipped its head like it might step inside. I took the rein and led it to the yard, tying it to the plough. The house smelled sweetly of raspberries that summer, and the horse, when I petted it, smelled of daisies, like a daisy chain. In the early afternoon Popper rode the horse away. He said he was going to the Farstad farm, because he figured the horse belonged to old man Farstad, the painter with the lazy eye. He returned when the sun was setting, on a cart drawn by a horse. Mrs. Farstad was next to him, carrying one of Mr. Farstad's oil paintings. Urging the horse was a man Martha recognised as a policeman. It had fallen dark. The grown-up sat at the kitchen table, with the painting leaning to one side. Martha offered everyone bread and jam, and everyone was supposed to be quiet because of Mother, who lay sick in the room next door. But Mrs. Farstad made a lot of noise crying. She cried at the painting, Nice Trees at Sunset, and cried at anything anyone said. Father grew tired and shooed them off like he would cattle. The little wooden bridge over the stream was not visible, but we could hear Mrs. Farstad and the policeman leave, the wheels of the cart rolling on the bridge, and Mrs. Farstad crying the whole time. She said her husband was missing. Why would nobody help her find him? Before they were out of earshot, Papa announced boldly that old man Farstad was a decrepit womanizer and a fool, and that it was no loss to anyone he was missing. He didn't have much good to say about Mrs. Farstad either, being a bigger fool for having married the other fool. Then Papa turned from the open door to slap Martha across the face. Martha should not waste fresh jam on strangers, he said. It was sad that Mrs. Farstad's husband was missing, but when she cried I could only see the funny shapes the crying face makes. Almost a happy sad face, like the ones Martha and me made in games in the meadow sometimes. But I did like the painting that Mrs. Farstad carried with her. The nice sunset. Papa said it only proved that Mrs. Farstad was daft. The next morning we had chores to do. I collected eggs from the chickens and Martha made more jam, while Papa milked the cows, and after that he worked on the little wooden bridge at the end of the yard. The blows from his hammer rattled the air, and at one point he looked over his shoulder to see us watching at the open door at the kitchen. He smiled like he used to. He pointed with his hammer to the meadow and remarked how the fjord seemed to rise and fall, as if summer itself was a mighty animal breathing slowly. Then he mopped his brow and went back to work, removing the bridge piece by piece and tossing the pieces into a pile. Some days Martha and me took picnics to the meadow, where we played for hours. We lay on our backs in the bleaching and mosses and wild grain, looking up at the sky, and we laughed because Papa considered the fjords a mighty animal breathing. Soft clouds like a Sunday petticoat. We breathed in harmony with them and made a promise to go to the nearby village, but since Mother got sick we never went anywhere. After a while we returned to the house, which stood at the beginning and at the end of the road, our secret surrounded by purple foxglove and pretty butterflies and all the different birds that feed on them. I am not sure when Mr. Farstad appeared. Days, maybe weeks had passed since a visit from his wife and the policeman, but here he was on his grey mare, flailing and shouting. Father said later that old man Farstad had been missing for 124 days. The house had been aching like old bones, and Pop was spending more time in the room where Mother lay sleeping. He had been counting the days. Mr. Falstad, through the open door, was gaunt like a fairy story suddenly remembered. The commotion he made carried into the house. We told Papa he was here. Yes, I can hear him, said Papa. Mr. Falstad dipped and wobbled atop his horse, shouting fancy words. How highly the King of Norway is regarded, but not any more. A terrible danger has threatened his fair country and its autonomy, but not any more. Words like that. On his back he carried his paint and easel. He remarked how excellent it was to be among good and fair people such as us, and dismounted the horse clumsily, tipping a few steps, but picking himself up at the point of falling over. He had in his hand a foxglove that he did not drop, and used it to make a point. The foxglove, he said cheerily, waving the flower in the air, was common to the fields, but it was also a precious gift of nature. Spiteful and beloved, he motioned that he would like to enter the house, and leaned heavily into it, through the open door, and placed the foxglove in Martha's hand, because it was right and fitting to do so. He proposed a handsome portrait of good and fair people. Mr. Falstad owed Papa money, and Papa did not think that foxglove or a handsome portrait were an acceptable substitute. Mr. Falstad argued that the portrait he had in mind was new and like no other. Papa would not hear of it, and refused to be taken in by what he called free talk. Anything new that Falstad painted, he said, would be painted by a drunken fool. Papa then left the kitchen, warning Mr. Falstad that he ought to leave too. Mr. Falstad did not leave. Instead he took his paint and easel, and set up his canvas in the kitchen, while he remarked on how lovely the view was from the open door. The meadow at this time of year was rich. He made a sketch first. Most artists do, he said, and he put Sister and me in it. He wanted to paint a natural look, which meant he would paint the world only as he saw it, in all its glory and all its vices. It was a beautiful world, a beloved world, yet toxic, not unlike some types of flower. The smell of the oil paint and Mr. Falstad's stale liquid breath, and the jam that was not fresh but had flies on it, was sick and sweet on the air. Martha and me were at the door, watching Papa burning the little pile of wood that had once been a little wooden bridge. He sat down in the shade of the plough as smoke from the fire rose in the sky, and the meadow in turn waited for evening. Mr. Falstad mixed his colours, saying he had never seen anything quite so lovely in all his life, before he steadied his hands on the canvas like he might otherwise collapse in a ball and cry. The kitchen remained quiet then, except for the scratch of brush and canvas, and the hush of the wind in the aspen as the sun was setting. Now and then Mr. Falstad would consider his palette, a blue or a yellow, and he would mix them together. He worked fast. I never saw the painting, but Martha did, taking a look from time to time as we watched the meadow from the kitchen door. She described the painting as beautiful to Papa when Papa returned. Mr. Falstad was at the bottle again, but left soon after the fight with Papa. The fight had not changed his opinion, however, and he was saying things about the king well into the dark. Then it was silence in the yard. Mr. Falstad grey mare alone now, much as it had been 4 days ago. Papa threw the painting onto the fire, composed of a little wooden bridge. We followed him then into the room where Mother lay sleeping. The light from the kitchen gave the room a gentle hue, echoed in Papa, who walked to the bed and gently patted the shape on it. Mother. He sat on the edge of the bed, his back to the room, unaware that his face was lighted in the window. Tears rolled down his reflection, an accent in the glass that was strange and fragile, and looked like it might break at any moment. Papa wiped his eyes on his shirt sleeve and turned to smile. Everything is all right, he said. Deep down I knew he was of the opinion that Mother may never recover, and that it was better we were alone and lost to the world, in the meadow among the fjords. Martha examined the flower in her hand, the foxglove given to her by Mr. Falstad. A simple thing can be rather complex, she said, much like happy sad. The grey mare attracted to the jam was trying to climb into the kitchen. We could hear the pots and pans being knocked down from the shelves. A calamity of noise. Think of life as a long road with different aspects to it. First the meadow, and then the house, and then along comes the horse. That's how my memories of my beloved vast dead land always begin. Papa mumbled his plan to the king, saying that if he was king, this he'd do, and with a start he snatched the flower from Martha's hand and threw it to the floor. Did not care much for Mr. Falstaff's painting, and refused to forget that Falstaff was a drunken fool married to a bigger fool. Papa was spiteful, but he was also sad. Martha and me left him like that, on the bed next to mother, and we took the horse and tied it to plough in the yard. When I petted it, the horse smelled of raspberries, like a daisy chain. Soon Papa would ride to the Falstaff farm, having figured the horse belonged to old man Falstaff. Happy, sad, beloved.